Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Game On. I am Todd Kerpelman. I am your host and a developer advocate on the Play Games team.
I'm Wolff Dobson. I'm a developer programs engineer on the Play Games team, and we're here to talk to you about the latest in the Play Games Services API.
We're here to talk about management tools, and we're going to end with a special surprise. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a graph. So I guess I kind of gave it away. All right, let's move on to news and updates. We don't really have any. Not a whole lot kind of happened.
It's going great.
It's been relatively.
Keep playing those games.
Keep playing games, and I guess no news is good news. So we'll move on to this week's topic, which are the management APIs. These are a set of APIs we've had available for a while, but I'm not sure people have taken advantage of them to the extent that they should have. And so Wolff has come to the rescue on behalf of all you developers, and he's made life easier for you. So we're going to have him talk about it.
All right, so the admin tools, this is the link to the docs if you want to check them out yourself. Basically, they are a bunch of REST calls that allow you to do certain sort of management tasks like reset achievements, hide players on high score lists, unlock achievements, that sort of thing.
Reset your score?
You got it.
While you're in testing?
And I bet when I say that, you're thinking, I don't want to make all these REST calls myself. I wish somebody had actually written that for me. And the answer is, somebody has, and that person is me. So let's take a look. So here's the first of 3 tools. This is the Play Games Score-O-Matic. And what this allows you to do is set and reset leaderboard scores. So this is the leaderboard from Firewall Defense, Bruno's excellent game. And I can get the scores that I've submitted. Now I haven't submitted any scores, so let's make myself score a whole bunch of scores. I'm going to score 10,000 points. And it says, great, your score is submitted. And then if I call get my scores, I've scored 10,000 points. And I'm first in my social group of 2. But
how come you're listed 3 times there?
That's for all-time high score, weekly high score, and daily high score.
Okay.
And I can reset all of those scores with one click of the button. I'm reset. Boink. And when I get my scores again, I've disappeared.
So this would be very useful if, say, we're testing our game, our scoreboard is full of our testers that have either found bugs to get ridiculously high scores, and we're like, oh man, we got to clear this out before we launch.
Or you have a system that does something special when you get daily high scores or something like that. You want to be able to set that off again and again. So this is a way for you to reset that. You can only reset your high score. You can't reset everybody's high score.
Okay, that's probably important to
Okay,
know.
Next up is the Reset-O-Matic. The Reset-O-Matic is the same thing except for achievements. So here we have a list of achievements in Firewall Defense. I'm gonna take this cadet thing and I'm gonna unlock it. Da-ding! Achievement unlocked. And when I refresh this, you can see it is now unlocked. Hooray! I could also, if it were an incremental achievement, increment it. And I can also just say, nah, I didn't win that on second thought. And when I refresh, it is now still revealed rather than unlocked.
Revealed here meaning that I always find our achievement states confusing. Revealed means that you know what the achievement is, but you haven't earned it yet,
right?
As opposed to hidden.
Or unlocked, which means you've actually achievement unlocked.
Yes. And so this is incredibly useful if, again, we're testing achievements before our game goes out and we want to kind of practice earning an achievement. We want to test that over and over again. Mm-hmm. We don't have to create 500 test accounts. We just
no, you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, reset this achievement.
You'd be sad. Okay. So then lastly, we have the Hide-O-Matic. And the Hide-O-Matic is the one that you're really going to use possibly from week to week when you're developing your game. So this is the main high score list for Firewall Defense. And you might look through here and you say, well, all these guys got their scores legitimately, but when I say I look through here, I see Bruno, and Bruno was the developer of the game. It's clear he didn't score those 6,000 points by himself.
No way.
So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say, be gone. I'm going to hide you forever. And so this player is now hidden. And if I refresh the high scores and I page to the second page, you can see there's no Bruno there any longer. That's totally cool. And if I decide to have mercy on Bruno and bring him back, I can click unhide, and he's unhidden. It'll take 12 hours for Bruno to reappear. It's a low priority job, so it's going to come back when it's going to come back.
Now, when you hide this player, are they hidden from all leaderboards or just this particular leaderboard?
No, they're hidden from all leaderboards.
Okay.
All right. Well, those are the management tools. These are all open source. You can get them from yourself from GitHub, from our regular samples.
And I guess it's probably worth noticing compared to most of our sample apps that are like, hey, here's a sample that you can kind of see how it works, but then you need to go and like make your own game, kind of, and copy and paste bits here and there from our samples. This is really intended for people to essentially use as an entire application. Yeah, you download this thing, they run it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I guess probably you can walk us through the setup steps, but it really is, hey, this is the code that you should be using on your own.
And because it's an API, you can expand it any way you want.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a look at how we're going to set this up. For you to use these tools, you're going to need to host them someplace. They're just a couple of HTML pages and some JavaScript pages. You'll need to put them someplace. Localhost even works for testing. You're going to need to link a web application in the console, and you're going to need to go into these JavaScript and the HTML files and replace a couple of constants. In this case, client ID, app ID, and in the hide-o-matic, you need the leaderboard. So even if you don't have a web version of your game,
which probably applies to a lot of our mobile developers.
Exactly. A lot of your developers, you're going to need to put the you're going to need to link a web application anyway. And this web application is actually, it's your game. So you should be careful with those credentials like you would normally.
So, sorry, just to clarify, I'm not going to create a new application that's my admin for my Angry Fruit game. I'm actually going to go into my Angry Fruit game, and I'm going to link a new web-based client ID for this game.
It's a web version of your Angry Fruit game.
Okay.
And you're going to fill out where you want it to point to, and you're going to create a client ID. And when you create the client ID for the web console, you need to set your JavaScript origins to wherever you're hosting these pages. In this case, I have it on localhost, but you could also host it just on a server inside your firewall, or even public, although you'd have to be pretty careful with that URL. It is worth noting that this is, in fact, a version of your game. It's just a version of your game with your game missing and just the leaderboards and scoreboard stuff in there. And so if you have a JavaScript origin set to localhost, it means that anybody else can download this. And they can go to the web version of your game, and they can pull out the client ID and the app ID and paste those into your things and unlock all the achievements and give themselves an arbitrary score. They won't be able to do the management tasks because you have to be an owner or on the tester list to use those tasks. To use those things, but they will be able to, sort of obviously just set their scores arbitrarily, and that you want to be careful with that. So I would advise, if your game is launched, you probably want to set your JavaScript origin to something besides localhost, probably an internal server that's inside your firewall. Okay, let's go on to the Q&A.
Oh, all right. Oh, you got something changing your JavaScript origins. Why would you want to do this?
Again, after you've launched your game, you might still want to do management tasks. So
gotcha.
You can change that from inside the API.
So we'd go to the API's console, or I guess coming soon, the cloud console, and we would change. This is basically where we could change our settings to be like, I don't want to be on localhost anymore. I want to be on internalserver.google.com or whatever.
Well, probably not google.com.
Yeah.
Unless you're us.
Yeah. Probably not you.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. So first question. It looks like, very clearly I would want to use this hide mechanism if it looks like somebody is doing something kind of nefarious, or they're being a jerk, and they're like, hey, I'm going to get a fake score up on there because I'm a lead hacker. So why not just ban these players?
You could ban them, but then they might notice and they might get angry and come after you again. But also, really, they're still going to appear in their social scoreboards. And so if somebody looks and says, the guy, yeah, he's still got the highest score, that's great. But they may be ruining the experience for the people on the public boards. So this allows them just to be like, well, they're not going to appear on the public boards. And then they will, when they look at the public board, they'll still see themselves. But if anybody else looks at the public board, they will not be there.
All right, so that's probably something to make sure. Hiding means hide from everybody except the cheating or the hidden player.
The adverse player.
Yes. So they wouldn't even know that they've been hidden unless they were to get another friend with an account to look at the leaderboards. And
look at the public leaderboards.
Public leaderboards.
They will appear in the social leaderboards.
And that looks like a lot of work.
Yeah.
I suppose the other advantage is if you hide someone that you suspect has gotten a score through nefarious purposes, and then it turns out they're just a really, really good player, you do have the option to unhide them.
You can put them right back again.
And all of their old scores will still be there.
Right. And another real use is that you have a bunch of testers who've been playing it in beta, and they all have really high scores. And you're like, I don't want to destroy your guys' score, but really we need to get that off there so people can have a chance.
All right, makes sense. Yeah, now using this tool, could I, for instance, my customer service people, someone emails me and says, hey, I didn't get this achievement. Can we grant them that achievement using this tool?
No, you need a valid access token for each account to be able to unlock achievements or lock achievements for them.
So the idea is this is really used for
unreveal. Set back to reveal.
So this is really just used for testing purposes. My testers have earned the achievements. They want to practice earning the achievements again, or they want to test that scenario again, so we can get them all back to their original state.
Yeah, the player hiding is the only thing you can do to somebody else, and again, only if you're an owner of the application.
Yeah, I guess that kind of links into our third question, sort of what you mentioned. How do I know who has access to these tools?
So for the testing tools, you just need to be on the tester list in the Play Games developer console.
And chances are, that's the one you've got to add so that people can try your game before any in-game services has been published.
Right,
basically.
And the owner of the application is the person who can do the hiding and unhiding.
Okay.
And you have to sign in as that person when you're using this application.
Gotcha. All right. So even if somehow, I were to get your client ID and you're on localhost, I'm still using that, and I do all that stuff you said, before.
Yeah, unless you're limited in what I can do. Unless you're logged in as that person, you can't make changes to thing, or as an owner, and hopefully you're not leaking your owner credentials.
Yeah, that would be
that would be bad.
That would be bad. Well, all right, great. I think that's everything we have on management tools. So Wolff, we got to get you out of here, so we have time for our graph. So you're on.
Hello.
Oh, hey, it's Javier. Javier, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, well, I'm Javier Snider from the Google Play Games team. Well, here I am.
And you're here to talk about a graph that we're about to see. So
yes.
I've got this whole seat here. I think I really only need the edge because we're about to reveal it right now.
Okay.
Hey, check that out.
Okay. So
what are we looking at? What is it?
Okay, well, this is an improvement in the unreliable latency between peers in real-time multiplayer games.
Okay, so I know we've we launched multiplayer matchmaking at Google I/O a few months ago. Since then, we've been sort of iterating and improving. One of those areas has been match quality.
Match quality. So what is this? This is a factor that we are always trying to improve in our matchmaking system, so the players can have a better experience in the matches that we create. So
it looks like a couple weeks ago this graph took a nice little dip.
Yes.
What happened here?
What is this? We start considering the broad geographic place of our players to estimate the latency that they are going to have when we form the match.
Gotcha. So you basically now kind of prefer, if I'm somewhere in, say, Seattle, you're saying, hey, we're going to try and match you with other people in the Pacific Northwest area, because chances are you'll have better latency than if we match you with somebody in.
So this is something tricky because we don't know the right latency after the match is formed, and at that point it's too late to choose a different player.
You can't kick someone out for having low latency.
No, of course not. So what we have to do is to collect data for all the matches between all the regions around the world, and with that data we estimate what is likely to be the latency between two players in different regions.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same region. If we know that for some reason, City A and City B have a really good internet connection between them,
exactly.
Your system would say, oh, it's okay to match up these two.
Yes, exactly. So essentially we do that, and we this feature, we get better quality in the matches, as you can see in the graph.
Yeah,
we have almost 15 or 20% improvement.
That looks nice.
This, yeah.
So were there any trade-offs involved in having to do this?
Yes, you always have those. So if we have a match, or when we are forming a match, we see that this match is not really good quality, or the latency is likely to be not so good, but we don't have other players there, probably we have to wait a little longer to combine the matches in order to wait for new players to arrive and see if they have better quality or better expected latency between them. So this is the trade-off. So maybe we need the players to wait a little longer before we form the matches.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is, for instance, I might be ready to play, and the only other, player available right now is in, Australia or somewhere where it's far away, probably slower, longer latency. The system's going to say, we're not going to match you up with that guy. We're going to look for somebody else with a better connection, and so it might take me longer to get into a match because I'm not going to play this guy in Australia.
Yes, but of course we don't want our players to wait too much. So what we also estimate is the waiting time to another player to appear for this particular game. And if we think that it's going to be too long, we don't wait and combine the players right away.
So you change the criteria a little bit based on how popular a game is, how many players are playing multiplayer at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that is dynamically adjusted. So for each application, each variant, and each moment, we calculate all these variables and decide if wait is a good idea or not. So, we prioritize these two things to have a good quality, but also not to wait too much that the player drop the match or whatever.
So for instance, in a very popular game, you could afford to reject, players that are too far away, might not have a good connection, because we know that there's constantly new people coming in, and that I won't have to wait too much longer to find a matching player. Whereas a game where it's just been released, or it's not very popular, or no one's playing multiplayer, even if some connection isn't optimal, the system will say, we're going to try and match you with him anyway, because at least it's better to have some game than no game at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. And by the way, we don't reject players. We just choose to combine them with other players.
You're right. I should pick better language. Yes. We love all of our players. We just yes. Okay.
Okay. So this is it.
That's very cool. So basically, our players should be noticing a better multiplayer experience.
Yeah, and, that's the idea.
Yeah, and over time, as you adjust these matching systems, and I guess as more people start playing multiplayer, they'll start to see improvements as well.
Yes. So another thing that maybe in the future happened is if a player or developers want to improve based on the skills of the players, we can do some similar stuff.
I've seen requests for that in the public database of like, hey, I want to match advanced players with advanced players, or people of the same difficulty level. But I guess you do have a good point where there's a trade-off there, where if we start not matching people with potential opponents just because maybe they're not the same skill level, the wait time is gonna go up. And depending on sort of how picky we get, it could, the more factors we kind of have to wait until we get a perfect match, the longer the wait time could be.
Yes, but of course we have to consider all these features or these parameters when we try to combine matches or players. And of course we don't always, the wait time, it's a very important factor, and we don't want our players to wait too much. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like a tricky problem.
Yeah, it's not a simple one, and again, the major problem is that you don't know all the information until it's too late to take the optimal decision. So you have to estimate a lot of details to do this process.
Huh. Well, I'm glad you're working on it and not me. All right, well, I think that wraps up this episode of Game On. I'd like to thank Wolff and Javier for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, Internet audience.